Right.
So tonight I'm going to tell you guys how to be gay. And there's something a little bit more to that than just being gay. And I realize it's really a question of how to be a good gay. That's hard. It's not easy. And so that's really what I want to talk about today. It's 5 years in the making. I'm not necessarily an expert, but it's something that was there. So first, a definition. Being gay is having an enduring attraction to the same gender or sex. And especially refers to gay men. And I realized that this term applied to me back in 2003. That was my sophomore year of high school. But it freaked me out. I didn't know what to do. As a very religious, conservative Christian, and it took me until 2010 to really accept that for myself. That was 6 years ago now. It's over that time I actually tried to get rid of it. I went through something called orientation change therapy, which is harmful and damaging to people. Coming out of the closet in 2010 was hard. I lost a lot of friends. It took a lot of effort for me to actually get through that and to do it. And I realized that being gay is not simply about accepting that you're attracted to people of the same gender. It's something a lot more than that. It's something deeper. There's an entire community there that needs to be explored. Michel Foucault, who himself is a gay man, once said that the problem is not to discover in oneself the truth of one's sex, but rather to use one's sexuality henceforth to arrive at a multiplicity of relationships. We have to work at becoming homosexuals and not be obstinate in recognizing that we are. That's a really kind of technical thing, and it's a lot of Foucault. But think about it as, being gay is just a starting point. It's the beginning of a journey that will take your entire life to really realize what does that mean for the rest of your life? What does it mean to explore the world because now you're gay? Now you realize that that's part of who you are. So another term, drag. Drag is when a man dresses up in women's clothes or a woman dresses up in men's clothes. Many of you have seen drag performances, perhaps not. They're amazing. See men wearing heels, dancing around on stage, lip syncing to music. It's fantastic. But part of drag is a social commentary. It's a beating heart of gay culture. It involves thinking about what if gender is just a performance? In many cases it is, right? Me dressed in these clothes is a performance. Me being a professional, that's a performance too. And maybe so many parts of our lives are so many performances. Things that we're doing for the people around us. Maybe that's all it is. Maybe life itself is a drag. And so when we start thinking about drag and what it means for the gay community, it starts to question, maybe other things in our lives are things that we should be questioning. Maybe the other roles and the expectations put upon us are things that are just performances that we're doing. Drag is really a question and a proposition. Can you think about the ways in which the world expects you to behave, and can you start acting outside of it? And that's such a central core of being gay. It's part of how to be gay. It's to say to the world, look, you're expecting me to be married to a woman, living in the suburbs, whatever, having kids. Fuck you. I'm gonna be me. So, faggot. Being yourself is actually really difficult, and faggot's another word. It actually means it's an insult. It's an insult for gay men. And it's hard to be yourself in the face of the world. Sometimes, the world doesn't like you to be who you are. And that's part of realizing that this whole world is a performance. And the history of the gay movement is one of protest. Our movement really started in 1969 with a riot started by a trans black woman. And it evolved into a protest movement in the 80s when our community was dying of the AIDS epidemic. We lost an entire generation of gay men. It's really, that continues into today. Being LGBT and having gay rights are not simply about getting married. I could be fired in the majority of states in the US for being gay. That's still an issue. Why is that an issue? And when it comes down to trans issues, who are also part of the gay community, trans individuals are struggling to be able to use their own bathrooms, the one that corresponds to the chosen gender. When we think about the broader aspects of what it means to be gay, there's also a political community, right? It's a community that is struggling in the face of hatred, struggling in the face of people who don't understand us, people that say, no, we are who we are. So, Ta-Nehisi Coates, who's an African-American writer, writes, "Hate gives identity. The nigger, the fag, the bitch, illuminate the border, illuminate what we ostensibly are not, illuminate the dream of being white, of being a man. We name the hated strangers and are thus confirmed in the tribe. And so when we think about hatred, when we think about what that means for our communities, so many times it's actually about the other person, right? And this experience of being oneself in the face of people who don't like you, it's not something that's simply about our community, it's about all of us. And that's so very important. I've been spit on, I've been called a faggot, I've been called a bitch. I've been threatened with violence for who I am. But at the end of the day, we look at ourselves and we say, we are who we are, and we are going to live that. And that changes our lives. We can see into the future, instead of seeing, a house with 4 kids, I see so many other things. I see opportunity. I see a world that I can make my own. And that's really the beginning of this journey for me. So at the end of the day, I spent 5 years trying to recover psychologically from a treatment that was meant to cure me of my gayness. And I've only just started to recover and to think about what does it mean to actually live a life that's truly flourishing. 15 years ago, we thought this was impossible, to have 2 people of the same gender actually get married in this country. Just think about what the future could be. Think about the ways in which we could actually stand in the face of the people that don't like us for who we are. If we just said yes to the things that are within ourselves that we're ashamed of, that our parents don't want us to do, the parents derided it. It's me. What if we look into the future and come from a core of understanding who we are and say, fuck you. I'm going to embrace the things that are me, and I'm going to be myself, and you're going to deal with it. And you can spit on me, you can call me whatever you want, but you know what? That's how we get. Thank you. Okay, questions. Alden.
Something that I struggle with recently is how do we identify with people, and just maybe for background, my younger brother is gay as well. But how do we identify with people and give them good faith benefit of the doubt when they have political views that are essentially bigoted, in my personal view? And I guess my question is, as a public policy student and practitioner, how do you try to engage in that in a conscious, sort of praxis-oriented way that allows for common dialogue and exchange and that kind of stuff?
Yeah. I'm friends with a lot of people that disagree with me. And that's actually really important. So I'm Catholic, and actually just recently became Catholic. And that's something that I chose to do. And I keep around actually a lot of the people that didn't like me after I became gay. And I think it's important to keep the lines of communication open there. And a few weeks ago, I think, we had a gentleman from Alabama, the Alabama Christian Coalition came in. And oftentimes, it can be difficult, but I think coming from a religious background myself, there's a way in which there's an internal logic, right? To the way that people disagree with you. And if you can step into the shoes for a moment, maybe you can start to think about what that is. And that's a lot of what I do is actually challenge myself to say, like, all right, back in 2007 when I was thinking about this, what would I have said to myself? I would have said exactly what that gentleman said to us, to me. I would have compared homosexuality to STDs. I would have, said a whole bunch of terrible things. But it made sense to me, and it didn't seem bad. And so, you can start to kind of pick apart that, and a lot of it's just, being friends with people. I mean, if someone doesn't like me, sure, fine, I'll be your friend. But, it's, my boyfriend Justin once told me that if he stopped being friends with everyone who had ever been racist to him, he wouldn't have any friends anymore. And I think if I stopped being friends with everyone who's ever been homophobic to me, I'd have very few friends left. Any other questions? So for those who couldn't hear, the question was whether it was my choice to go into gay conversion therapy or diversification change therapy. And the answer is it was my choice. So for many young adults in the United States, they are forced into these kinds of conversion therapy programs against their choice. Only recently in several states that's become legal for minors. But for me, actually, I decided to go into it. For those who don't know, my mother is this amazing feminist and wonderful woman who, when I came out, was just like, yeah, duh. And so, like, for me, really, it was my own issue. It wasn't my parents' issue.
Have you kept in touch with anyone else that you were at NRB?
Yes. Some of whom are still in the closet, or same-sex attracted but going through therapy. Yeah, and I talk with them. It breaks my heart sometimes, but I think it's a difficult thing to come through.
Would you say that in a city like Chicago, like you, that's a problem? At some point.
Yeah. So the question is whether it's difficult to be gay in Chicago, in a liberal city or a liberal university, and the answer is yes. Roberta knows. When I talk about being spit on, being called a faggot, being called a bitch, like that happens here. I've only been out since moving here. In Chicago is a fairly liberal city. We are in the Midwest, but most of us don't have a problem with gay people. But it's still a problem here. It's a problem everywhere. It's not simply that's New York City, people get beaten up for being gay, being trans all the time. It's just part of life.
If you could do one thing in Chicago, and it didn't matter how much it costed, or how much it cost to make like LGBTQ life better for everyone, what would you do?
Socially or economically?
Socially or economically. Yeah. So one thing that I would do in Chicago to make life better for LGBT people. Oh, that's a difficult question. I don't know. Maybe can we buy everyone gay friends? I mean, when I and this goes back to what I was telling Galen in response to Galen's question. When I first came out, I was very tempted to just let go of all the people that didn't like me. And my little brother actually cautioned me against that. Who's bi, by the way. You're very gay, anyway. But so he was just like, look, the number one way that you convince people to change their minds is by being friends with them. And so when it comes down to it, chat with the gay person. We're not that scary. I mean, sometimes we like to wear heels, but that's that's fine. Girls wear them all the time. So. I think that's all the questions. Thanks, guys.